Welcome to The Explainer. If you're joining me today, there's a really good chance you, or maybe someone you manage, is feeling a very specific type of modern professional exhaustion. You know the feeling, right? You're putting in the hours, you're applying all those proven management strategies, yet somehow you just feel completely stuck. Your teams are frustrated, turnover is unpredictable, and it honestly feels like the old corporate ladder is missing a few rungs. Well, today, we're going to unpack exactly why that's happening, and we'll be looking at some truly fascinating data on demographic shifts and generational mindsets to do it. Let me ask you something right off the bat. Who here knows how to swim? And on the flip side, who doesn't? Whether you're a competitive swimmer or you've literally never stepped foot in a pool, I'm sure both sides know exactly what happens when you try to run in deep water. It's this deeply visceral, incredibly frustrating feeling. Okay, let's dive into this. When you try to run in water, first off, you're barely managing to keep afloat just to breathe. Second, you start to notice you have absolutely zero forward movement. Third, you suffer extreme exhaustion and it happens very quickly. And fourth, well, unless someone lends a hand or you intuitively let go, relax, and learn how to float, you sink. And here's the thing. This is exactly how business leaders, HR professionals, and employees are feeling today when trying to navigate modern companies. They are essentially trying to run in deep water. Section 1. Swimming in the liquid world. So here's the core paradigm shift. We have transitioned completely out of the world our organizations were originally built for. The context has fundamentally changed, but our systems just haven't. For decades, we lived in what you could call a solid world. Everything was predictable. You studied for one career, went to a good university, got a job in a stable company, and you climbed a nice, linear corporate ladder. The old strategies worked perfectly, but today, we live in a liquid world. The context is constantly shifting around us. Technology, the economy, education, even the very way we work. Applying those old, solid world tools to our new liquid reality is the exact reason managers are burning out. We're trying to run in the water instead of learning how to swim. Section 2. The end of the young world. You see, our legacy corporate systems didn't just magically appear out of nowhere. They were actually built on a demographic foundation that simply no longer exists. Our institutions have this deep obsession with youth, mainly because, historically, we were a very young society, and this table brilliantly illustrates that. Look at the 1950 reality. Over 70% of the global population was under 30 years old. Almost 50% was under 15. But jump to the 2020 reality, and it's starkly different. We aren't having as many children. The under 30 population is shrinking rapidly, and the global population as a whole is aging. We're basically applying management systems designed for an endless pipeline of young workers to an aging demographic collapse. Think about it. Because of that massive youth supply back in the day, supply and demand heavily favored the employer. Managers could comfortably drop this exact ultimatum: do what I say, or I have 20 people waiting for your job. And the crazy thing is, it worked, because there really were 20 young people desperate for that spot. Today, those 20 replacements just do not exist. The leverage has completely shifted. Section 3. The clash with Gen Z. Now, it's really easy for traditional managers to look at the youngest generation in the workforce and label them as the problem. But honestly, they're actually the ultimate symptom, the reflection of this new liquid world. Look at this projection. By 2030, millennials, who are currently dealing with massive emotional burnout, by the way, and Gen Z are going to make up 74% of the workforce. Older generations will be just 26%. You absolutely have to understand this. Gen Z didn't enter the workforce to adapt to your traditional organization. They came to transform it. Adapting to them isn't just a nice-to-have, it's an urgent necessity. To really grasp why traditional companies are struggling so hard to integrate them, take a look at this. 52% of Gen Z professionals flat out refuse to step into middle management roles. On top of that, 72% prefer an individual path for professional progress rather than managing people, and 69% just view managerial positions as high stress with extremely low reward. They literally don't want the jobs we are trying to promote them into. But if that surprises you, buckle up for this staggering statistic. 77%. That is the percentage of Gen Z workers who actually admit to having brought a parent to a job interview. Yeah, you heard that right. For a traditional manager who cut their teeth in the solid world, this is completely baffling. It totally shatters all their preconceived notions of workplace professionalism. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the actual breakdown of what these parents are doing.
Of the Gen Z candidates who brought parents, 40% had the parent actually sit in on the interview. 34% had the parent answer questions for them. 73% are getting help from their parents to complete daily work tasks. And get this, an incredible 79% say their parents communicate directly with their managers about everything from conflict resolution to asking for promotions. Objectively speaking, it is very easy to see why older managers are just completely bewildered.
And as you might expect, that bewilderment often turns into friction. 1 in 6 managers now hesitate to hire Gen Z at all. And 6 out of 10 companies have actually fired a Gen Z employee within their very first year. And the companies are citing some very specific reasons. They say these younger workers cannot accept criticism, they're easily offended, they lack problem-solving skills, and they display unprofessional behavior. These are the very real growing pains of a liquid generation crashing headfirst into solid world corporate structures.
Section 4. Redefining professional ambition.
So it's very easy to just point fingers here and label this entire generation as lazy or chronic job hoppers. But doing that means deeply misunderstanding our liquid world. So the crucial point is this. Younger workers haven't quit ambition. They've simply rejected the broken idea that ambition only comes in one shape. A traditional career meant climbing someone else's corporate ladder. A Gen Z career? That's about building your own ladder. Think about it. They watch their parents give everything to single companies only to end up burned out with pensions that barely cover modern living. They are absolutely done with someone else's version of a career.
Let's compare these two mindsets side by side. The obsolete ambition, which is the one our companies are mostly still built to reward, is all about getting one degree, having one job title, and waiting 20 years for a corner office and a retirement package. The new ambition in the liquid world is a totally different ballgame. It's about building a product or a service. It's about monetizing a highly specific skill. It's about owning equity, and ideally cashing out and exiting by the time you're 30, or really whenever you want. And the data perfectly backs up this intense, self-directed drive. 54% of Gen Z want to start their own business. On top of that, 42% already have a side income. This is definitely not a generation devoid of ambition or work ethic. They are just applying their energy to systems they actually own and control, rather than systems they feel are eventually going to fail them. Let's move to Section 5 and see how this all builds to our conclusion. The future is multi-generational. Here is the reality check. You cannot change the demographic collapse, and you absolutely cannot force a liquid generation back into a solid mold. So, how do we actually survive this? We start right where we are, internally. The ability to attract, retain, and integrate multi-generational teams is no longer just desirable, it is a strategic necessity. The economic and social future is being forged right now, at this exact moment. If you fail to understand what this demographic shift implies, you have a massive operational risk on your hands. And let me be super clear about this. Not even artificial intelligence can save a company that fails to integrate its human workforce. Which brings us right back to our opening metaphor. The solid world is gone. The context has irrevocably changed. So what does this all mean for you? I'll leave you with this final thought to take back to your teams. Are you going to keep exhausting yourself trying to run in deep water? Or are you finally ready to relax, let go of the old systems, and learn how to swim? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.